Hello and welcome to B2B Brew, powered by Oracle. I'm your host, Joe Escobedo, and very excited. We have two marketing experts based in India joining us here today. First, I would like to introduce Ranjita Ghosh, who is the head of marketing APMEA strategic market unit at Wipro, as well as Madhukar Uniyal, who is the head of solution engineering, customer experience applications at Oracle India. Thank you guys so much for being on today's show.
Joe, thank you very much for inviting us over. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I was really, really excited to have you on. And Regina, I would love to hear more about your marketing journey over the past 8 years. I know you came from a sales background, so I'd love to hear how you transitioned from sales to marketing and how did that experience really help you in your current regional role?
So the entire transition from sales to marketing, and that's my entire career actually. So my entire career has been in Wipro. I started right after my MBA, and the first few years, about a good 8 years, has been in sales, which was business development for the utilities industry. And I was involved in a lot of work to do with securing clients, working on RFPs, doing pre sales activities, which were for our customers in the utility segment in Europe, largely Europe, and a bit of the Americas. So that was a great experience where I really learned a lot about the sales cycle, business development, how to prepare documents for RFPs, large tenders, how to do pricing, and many other aspects that really go into all of that. And of course, also be able to present our solutions to customers and just take feedback, ensure that we are constantly revising our submissions and ensuring that we are able to give the best to our clients. So that was my whole experience, and many large tenders, large bids, large clients that I've worked with and for. So I would say that was quite a fulfilling experience, really. And then in about 2013, I decided to move over to marketing. The decision was largely about two things. One was marketing was my background uh, in terms of my education. And so, for all these years, all the experience that I had in a front end kind of a role, I was very keen to experiment and see, how I can take all of that experience into marketing and do something different in that aspect and still help the business to grow and make a difference to how we sell to our clients and what kind of an impact we're able to make. So it was largely about that. The decision was when and how to pivot. I always knew that I wanted to be in marketing. It was kind of a matter of time, I would say, Joe.
Absolutely. And I think that really helps kind of because a lot of times one of the biggest challenges in marketing is understanding sales. And because you have both backgrounds, it's easier for you to understand what the sales team is going through in your current capacity. So I think it sounds like it's an invaluable skill set to what you're currently doing.
Yeah, thank you. And it is. There is a lot of good experience that I'm able to bring in from my sales stint into marketing. Largely, it's about understanding clients, it's about how to sell to them, uh, how our brand should be positioned. That's a real big one. And of course, what kind of marketing levers can we really apply to ensure that we're doing the right kind of customer advocacy, we are able to position our company in a good light, and also ensure that we're building long-term relationships in that process. And as marketing and all the levers that I have today support me in that kind of an endeavor.
Absolutely. I think it's really, really important to hear kind of your background. I'd love to hear kind of there's obviously a lot of challenges in your current role. And I think what a lot of global marketers are facing. So I'd love to hear what is the biggest challenge you believe global marketing directors in your space are trying to solve, whether it's this quarter or over the longer term?
So quite a few, that one can think about, but as I see, there are three main areas or three main challenges that as marketing we are always set up for. The first one being the perception of marketing. So, how do you transform the function as the organization evolves? So, with with every evolution of the organization or the transformation of the organization, marketing plays an even bigger role. So it's a constant challenge to ensure that the function is agile, it is scalable, and more than that, it is resilient to be able to stay relevant and often ahead of the curve in the larger scheme of things. So, the way I see it, marketing is or should be seen as a strategic enabler for business, sales, a pipeline generator for the company's future business, and a function that leads the entire company in positioning itself against competition. So, marketers therefore should consider themselves as strategists for their individual business streams because they are very well placed to influence, measure, and interact daily with their potential markets. And that to me is a very, very big plus. And the challenge is in terms of how to put that really into perspective and ensure that even business stakeholders are seeing it in the right light and are leveraging marketing in the right way. And I wouldn't really say that this is a challenge in the negative sense. I would say that this is a positive challenge, and it is something that keeps us on our toes and ensures that we are trying to outdo ourselves with every new transformation program, every new initiative that the organization wants to go after, and we are ensuring that marketing is at the forefront of that. The second one is about marketing ROI. So, how do you really ensure that all the investments that are made into marketing, be it an event, be it a campaign, be it some kind of a content strategy, be it a brand positioning program, how can all of that come together to ensure that we are able to derive the maximum value and benefit out of the investments that are made towards all of these aspects? And I would go to the extent to say that marketing really is one of the most strategic functions that an organization has. Um, and in my opinion, it is a function that should be at the center of change, business transformation, go to market strategies, and most of all, anything that's got to do with perception and brand positioning. And therefore, it is very important to ensure that we are able to measure the outcome of all the activities we do, all the investments that we go after, and we are able to put that into perspective and demonstrate that to our stakeholders. So all of this really needs very well-defined KPIs. It needs well-defined processes, measures, and a clear understanding of what marketing is really meant to do for the organization. And the third one that I would really call out is process streamlining. So how do you continuously improve on the processes that you have within marketing, and how one is able to ensure that this lives up to or even surpasses industry benchmarks. So to a lot of or at a lot of times, I would say that we should constantly try to see and measure uh, how our processes are structured, how beneficial are they today towards supporting the business outcomes. And there should be enough flexibility and agility to constantly tweak those processes to ensure that we're going towards the right direction, which is essentially trying to see that marketing is business focused and outcome driven.
Wonderful. I think you bring up some really, really good points. One of which is marketing being a strategic function. I think, as you said, there's a tremendous opportunity because marketing is working with so many different functions that they really have a broad overview in terms of the organization. And I think it goes back to shifting perception because some organizations, unfortunately, the leadership look at marketing as a cost center. So what we're saying here is how do we shift that perception such that we're a strategic function, we're driving this digital transformation. And I think you bring up some really good points. I'd love to unpack some of the things you mentioned, particularly when it comes to ROI and showcasing impact of marketing. But I'd also love to hear from Madhukar, who maybe can explain or share some of his experiences, whether he's faced the similar challenges in his role.
Yeah, thanks, you. And it was quite insightful, to get the insights in. Like I said, hear and listen to the real marketers, especially since you've moved from uh, a sales role to a marketing role, so you understand both the dynamics from here. I the way I look at from a marketer's what they're trying to solve. And like you rightly said, you know, we want to make sure that it adds to the not just top of the funnel, but also to the conversion. It should add to the qualified leads, and the collaboration between sales and marketing is actually totally in sync, and it's collaborative. So a lot of time what happens, especially in B2B scenario, we try and look at sales and marketing as two different units, right? And there's always some sort of friction between sales think that we do not have the right qualified lead, or we are really spending time on opportunities and leads which are not really genuine, or they need more qualification. So from a technology standpoint, because I come from the technology and I look at behind the scene on how sales and marketing really collaborates from, I think what really makes a really important you know, uh, addition to this whole sales and marketing cohesiveness, especially around and when we talk to green perspective, is how do we capture the signals, right? Which could be online, which could be offline signals, which could be somebody coming to a digital property trying to, let's say, download a brochure, or maybe trying to access a gated content, or let's say offline where somebody's attending an event. How do we bring all those signals together and stitch it through customer, more through prospect 360, and then try and look at those signals and get some meaning out of it, right? So data is just a raw data which you can slice and dice and look at. But how do you get meaning out of that data is something I've worked closely with the marketers like yourself, and figured out that some are looking at data in a very different way, very objective, trying to see if somebody has replied to an email or come to a digital property, or maybe let's say attended an event, then we will score them a little higher. And some of the marketers have gone to the level of where they look at how much time was spent on the digital property itself, what time of the day, was the email replied, and look at various different signals with various different lenses, and then put them into some sort of a scoring model. With some machine learning behind it, and then prioritize which are the right prospects, which are the right leads, so that before we pass for sales, which is in fact the most valuable resource, when I say valuable, they're most finite and the scarce resource in the organization. So how we marketing make sure that when we pass on these qualified leads, we have actually done everything that is needed from a quantification standpoint, from a nurturing standpoint. So yeah, I kind of look at it from a technology lens, but it all has to make sure that marketing and sales are totally in sync, and sales gets what they need from marketing, and marketing gets what they need from sales, which is to loop back. Right? So everything flows back into the marketing, so they have a clear or the closed loop learning, or when we spend some efforts and some budgets and some campaigns into the marketing, how to result on that, both from the offline and online.
I absolutely appreciate you sharing that. You bring some really, really good points in terms of leveraging technology to reduce some of the friction between marketing and sales. Because going back to your point, there's always that friction that, sales is saying, why didn't you send me enough qualified leads, or the quality is not as great as we would like it to be. So as you talked about leveraging technology, looking at some of those data points, those signals to pull out some of those insights and making sure that you are handing over the best, most qualified leads, I think that really helps, to your point, facilitate and build those relationships between marketing and sales. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, and I also love to hear, going back to Ranjito, you're talking about streamlining processing and showcasing ROI, the impact to marketing has had on the business line. So I'd love to hear, what are some of the ways in which you've addressed both of those opportunities?
Sure. So, definitely in terms of the ROI, and in terms of ensuring that we are able to get the right insights and the right results back to our business stakeholders. I think one of the important points to ensure is uh, that we have the right kind of marketing automation in our ecosystem. One that is able to qualify opportunities, where we are able to track a campaign end to end, where we are able to ensure that the right input is coming into the system, and we have the ability to go back to the business with the right kind of insights and the right kind of, I would say, feelers that we get from the market in terms of how our camping is performing, in terms of the kind of insights that the market wants to know, and we are on top of all of that, just so that the messaging is relevant, the content that we're using is relevant, and we are also reaching out to the right stakeholders and in a very timely manner. So all of this coming together is, in my opinion, it's a very well driven uh, process and program management that really comes into play here. It is, many a times, and we just spoke about the sales and marketing connect or disconnect. I think one of the biggest points of failure is when this kind of a handover between sales and marketing is not properly streamlined, be it with the use of process, KPIs, or even the right kind of understanding between sales and marketing as to what are the key touch points and what are the points of handoff. Because a number of times there's a lot of expectation that okay, marketing will probably do something end to end, but we may not have the means or even the I would say the right kind of an enablement to do that. It is therefore very important to ensure that the right handoffs are in place, and that's again where it comes back to the whole discussion about having the right process and KPIs. And again, as marketing with the right kind of tools, if we are able to demonstrate the value out of the investments that we make into events or campaigns, and these are all, most of the times, these are all very large investments. So, what kind of marketing qualified leads are visible? How is sales taking that forward and ensuring that the discussions are happening with clients? How proactive are we all together, sales and marketing, in terms of ensuring that we're reaching out to the customers when when it is still, I would say, the event is still fresh, and the conversations are still relevant. So all of that has to be in tandem and play to a good tune, just so that the entire upstream and downstream activities are very well executed.
Absolutely. You bring up some really good points, one of which is around events. I know B2B companies are constantly running, whether it's virtual or in person events. And I think one of the things that's a bit of a balancing act, you said, is the handover. So, at what point do you get sales involved? For example, follow ups after an event, and what constitutes a lead? I think this is still a question mark for a lot of B2B organizations who maybe pass anyone who signs up for an event or a webinar directly to sales. And going back to Madhukar's point, is there some friction there? So I'd love to hear maybe if you have any thoughts in terms of what is the right timing or the right process for handover on something like events, which you mentioned earlier.
Sure. I would go back a step to say that the the entire handoff for even before we do an event or we do an campaign, everybody has to be at the same page in terms of why we are doing a certain activity, what is the expected outcome, and clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Because most of the times where we are not able to, or you know where we are not able to go the whole mile with a program in terms of its success, while the event can be very successful in terms of the visibility that we get out of it, or the kind of social media coverage or the PR coverage that we're able to get out of it. But at the end of the day, if we are not able to translate all of that into well defined outcomes where we are actually going back to our client base and are able to take conversations forward, um, to a large extent, most events end up not being very successful. And in my opinion, all of this really has to start right at the beginning. So, sales, marketing, leadership, if there are technology functions that are involved, domain experts, all of us have to be on the same page as to understand how each person contributes to an event, how each person contributes to its success, and how all of them view this as a part of their own roles and responsibilities to ensure that they do their part of the closure. And marketing is the orchestrator. Marketing is going to do the program management. They're going to bring all of this together. But at the end of the day, when there is a qualified lead, it has to be the technology, the domain experts, and the sales teams who have to pick it up and take it forward. And all of this can only happen when right at the start we are able to agree that this is what each person and each team is responsible for. Joe, does that help?
Absolutely. I think it's a beautiful point you made. Really identifying some of the roles and responsibilities, because I think this is where a lot of organizations struggle is, to your point, marketing is leading the conversation. They're leading the programs. Sometimes sales or other teams will get involved at the very end. And to your point, they may be misaligned in terms of what is their role, what are they supposed to be doing within this particular program. So I think, to your point, getting everyone aligned at the very beginning, making sure that everyone is clear in terms of what they should be responsible for and what role they play, could definitely help reduce some of the uncertainty that a lot of organizations, marketing, sales, customer service, have when they're involved in, say, an event like this. So beautiful point. I really appreciate you sharing that one. I'd love to open up to Madhukar as well to see if he has any additional insights on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the points that one that marketing is like the orchestration engine, or you can say it's very much like the orchestra, right? You have different instruments. You have a guitar, and you have a drum, and you have a music instruments, and you have a trumpet. But how do we all play together? It is simply is something which marketing is. So and I think marketing is not just limited to just generating a lead and passing it on to sales, but like I said, bringing it back and closing the loop and finding out how uh, you know how the conversions are happening. And I won't say it just stops there by looking at fancy reports, say, okay, I generated these many leads and these were conversions, but it goes beyond that. Getting singles from, let's say, post sales and finding out, what was the customer's satisfaction score. Because especially in B2B, in the considered purchase cycle, it's a lot farming, I have to put it that way, as much as it's about getting the net new business. So it's very important that marketing is on top of everything. In India, very rightly said, it's like you are the one who is making sure that all the instruments are played and actually simply and music comes out really well from the overall enterprise. So yeah, totally. And I think marketing is basically uh, the the custodian of customer experience, uh, as much as sales and as much as service counterparts. But yeah, marketing has to bring all this information together and ensure that company revenues are on track and as expected, and also make sure that the data from the service side, which is post sales and pre-sales, and from our sales counterparts, everything is totally aligned, so that we have a very objective view where we are headed from conversion perspective, from marketing perspective, from lead, and from ultimately revenue. Yeah, so totally. And I'm going to pick that one, Ranjita. That was a very good example, like the orchestra and marketing taking care of that orchestration for me.
Absolutely. I'm gonna definitely have to steal that idea from you, because I love the idea of conveying it as an orchestra. And then, to your point, like I said, if you have a symphony or orchestra, it's important that everyone is playing their instruments in the right way together. Otherwise, it would just sound terrible. So I think that's a very visual representation that I really appreciate you sharing. It got me thinking. I'm definitely going to reuse that. So thank you so much for sharing that one. Here's one that I'd love to bring you both back and get your thoughts on, is commonly held beliefs. And I think there's a lot of commonly held beliefs in our space. But what is one commonly held belief in your industry that you passionately disagree with? Rajita, I'll hand over to you first, and then I'll kick it off.
Sure. Uh, the one commonly held belief, and this is something that I've seen all throughout my marketing experiences. Marketing is equal to events, and this one really gets me at times, because many a times I have seen that, okay, you know what, let's have a conversation with marketing. They're going to work out something. They're going to come up with some kind of an event. Or if we have to do some kind of a program, you know, be it a customer advocacy related campaign or a program, or some kind of an influence mechanism, the first thing jumps to the point that, okay, let's do an event. But I see it a little differently. I think event is one aspect of an influence mechanism, whereas there are just so many of those. And all of it has to come together in a certain way that, okay, it probably culminates at an event, or it leads towards something which is an engagement platform. And, there are many ways to utilize the marketing budgets and dollars that we have. And all of it does not necessarily mean that an event is the only way that you can uh, spend that dollar, or show some kind of an outcome out of the budget that's allocated to you. Um, I really like to look at it in terms of a properly well defined, I would say, series of activities. If we are trying to do some kind of a large scale influence program, and an event is just like one aspect of it. But I personally don't like it when a conversation starts with an event. And it necessarily means that, you know, you're straight away jumping into an action oriented aspect without having truly defined, a lot of other things in terms of the strategy, the content, the positioning, or even a number of other softer aspects that one would think about. So, this does need a lot of education, which we constantly do for sales, for our stakeholders, for business teams. And really, one of my biggest, I would say, endeavors at all times is to ensure that conversations start at the right point where people are really understanding what marketing can do and where marketing really comes into the picture in terms of an entire influence program, rather than just being, I would say, one aspect in an entire series of events. So yes, Joe, this is one of those things that I passionately disagree with.
And I think it's a very good one. And you bring us a very good point in terms of internal education. You know, the challenge is other teams may not understand what marketing really does or the impact they can bring to our organization. So that internal education you talked about is really key because a lot of people really get excited when they talk about tactics. You know, an event is essentially a tactic. And I think to your point, you have to think about the strategy first. So what is the messaging? What is the audience? What is the goal that we're ultimately trying to achieve? That's really what makes an event successful. But you also bring up a very good point in terms of the thinking about it as a series. So a one-off event may not achieve your objective, but if you sprinkle in different ingredients, so going back to the analogies, if you think of it as cooking, you know, a lot of people think, okay, add one ingredient, that's it, but it's going to taste very bland, very, very dry, whatever it is. You want to sprinkle in multiple ingredients to really bring out the full flavors of that dish. And I think that is a beautiful way of thinking about it is, you know, move away from not only thinking about marketing as events and tactics, but also look at the strategy and how it impacts the broader organization. So thank you so much for that. I'd love to hand it over to Manakar as well to get his thoughts on the same topic.
Yeah, and I'm kind of fit, for one of the clue that Ranjita also explained was that success is 80% of planning and 20% of execution, right? I've seen a lot of time we get into the execution, we start thinking from the execution. Let's just launch this campaign, just to work this event. Whereas we don't really spend the necessary. I've seen in a lot of cases we have to look at what has been the past success. What are the data points telling us from past similar campaigns, similar events? So I think, yeah, that's one thing where if I could, and again, I'm saying this from being a technologist first and in marketing, professional later, is see there's a lot of buzz around the action. Let's just go through this. Let's just launch this great campaign and let's just launch this event. But we often don't look at the data points from the past. In some cases, data points are not even available. So we have to spend more time in planning and then execute. So take a shot. The second, thing which I believe make tremendous difference to the kind of way we, launch campaigns and engage with prospects and run the funnel and everything. And there's technical terms like call it A/B testing or multivariate testing, but we can bring testing into our DNA. Like it could be as simple as let's say launching a campaign on paid media, or let's say launching email campaign, right? And you can do A/B test and see what type of communication, what type of creative, what type of language, what type of content is giving me better hits, opens to conversion, and so on. And you can do it all in the events. Events that we have. What if you can bring in some variation? What it gives us is it gives us the ability to fail fast and learn quick. That's what testing is all about, right? So one and two, you have two, three different variants, and you see which one is giving you better conversions, which one is giving you better engagements. Even for the events, I think we can bring in testing into our DNA. That gives some statistical insight into what's working, what's not working. What are the things we should focus on? What are the things we could just. So yeah, those are two learnings personally that I've seen. See some organizations doing really, really
Wonderful. I love the point about fail fast, learn quickly. I think that's one of the fun things about being in digital marketing is, to your point, you can constantly experiment with these technologies to see what works, what doesn't work, and constantly optimize it. That's once again really the joys of digital marketing, I think. But to your point, like I said, you have to have a culture, I guess, that accepts, at least many failures. But for me, they're not necessarily failures because they're opportunities to learn. And I think
yeah,
that is what a lot of marketers need to understand is that we're running these experiments. There's no such thing as failures because it ultimately gives us new insights, something we can try differently or try again in a different way. So really, really good point you bring up. Last question I'll hand over to both of you. They've provided so many practical tips up to now. The last one is, what is something peers in your industry should stop or start doing today? And Ranjita, I'll hand it over to you first.
So, one of the things that I really believe all marketers should understand and should know what really defines the I would say the boundaries of marketing. There are many things. I mean, there's just so much that one can do. If let's say it's an event, it's a campaign, it's a digital marketing related program, it's content development, it's brand positioning. There's messaging, there is PR, there's everything. There's analyst relations, advisor relations. There's just so much. Working with partners, etc. But all of these need to have clear, defined perimeters. And that's how I would put it, because it's just so important to know uh, to what extent would marketing do a certain activity and support a certain activity. And like I mentioned earlier, what are the clear points of handoff? So therefore, all of us as marketers really need to start defining those perimeters, and we need to be very clear about what are those lines of handoff and what we will stop doing and what we will start doing, because that seems to be, I would say, often the most important challenge that we face. Um, and there are at times, and this is something that I've seen really, many times, is a lot of expectations about, okay, marketing should do this, or business is defining, or stakeholders other than marketing are defining marketing should do this, and we expected marketing to pick up this and run with it, etc. And I think to a large extent, it again goes back to the point that how educated, first of all, we are about our own function, and the perimeters of that function, and more than that, how educated are our stakeholders as well to understand how much would this function particularly do. And that onus is something that I would really take it on myself, and this is a part of my job every day, to ensure that when I'm interacting with stakeholders, I'm very clear about this kind of a distinction. So, Joe, to answer your question, marketers should start defining perimeters. They should start defining points of handoffs, and they should stop being everything to everyone.
Awesome. I love it. I think you bring us a really good point in terms of defining parameters, not only in terms of success of the department, but also our personal success in our role. I think that's extremely important to define. Otherwise, you risk burnout, you risk all these things, which I think unfortunately marketers do all the time. So I think being clear with yourself and your colleagues is an excellent point to bring up. So thank you so much for that. And then I will hand over the same question to Madhukar. What are your thoughts on this?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Joe. And I totally agree with you, Ranjita. I mean, it's not just about marketing, it's also about, you know, we as individuals and you know, we have to be very clear what the boundaries are and not overstep and understep, right? So that's great insight. And that's what we get to hear from, real practitioners like you. I've been, privileged to work with a lot of marketers and practitioners like you. And this learning, and if I really have to share one, uh, you know, uh, one suggestion of what I have learned in working with is there's I've seen a clear distinction between the uh, you know, the brand marketers, or let's say ATA, and the BTA, the below line marketing and above the line marketing. You'll know what that means. To give you an example, there are some marketers who really are amazing and come from that DNA of marketing, right? Let me just take an example. Maybe, Joe, it could be difficult for you to understand. There was a campaign way back when we were kids. Oh, how things get separated down. Such an amazing tagline. It just connected with the people straight away. Was some marketers great. And then we speak to marketers who really can go and look at analytics like what data scientists. And what really I feel is that it has to merge, right? The marketers and the technologists have to merge. I'm not saying that somebody who's fluent through DNA of marketing from the brand side becomes the expert in, let's say, web analytics or app analytics, but they need to understand how that ecosystem works. And likewise, those who are really fresh out of digital marketing course and some certification, they need to learn how marketing is to really work at how marketing, what it really means from the above the line of brand marketing. So it has to learn somewhere, because we sit right in the middle of technology and working with practitioners. We have a clear idea of what really marketers want to do with the brand and want to do, above the line, and what tactics really need then. We also understand from a technology perspective what technologists look at marketing, but it has to merge somewhere. And I think it is merging. It's merging really big. So yeah, that's just a suggestion, Joe, and what you see in the ground here.
No, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think as someone who works with a lot of young marketers, I think it's important that they understand the different roles, even within marketing. So you talked about the brand side and then the technology side, and obviously there's different areas within marketing. So it's important that if you are relatively new to a marketing role, you understand what are the distinctions. Going back to Ranjita was talking about parameters. What is the parameters within your specific function? Are you a marketing technologist? Are you a field marketer? Are you another kind of role? Having a clear distinction will help you set those parameters that Regina was mentioning, and ultimately be able to perform to your best. So, really, really good points. I really appreciate you guys both sharing so many practical insights today with us. Um, a lot of good takeaways for everyone listening or watching to this. So, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your insights with us today.